stage of the mission. 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 Mission.
Focus on the mission. 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 Mission must continue.
I think we should focus on the progress resulting from the mission. Mission.
Do you even listen to podcasts? I'm going to tell you the truth. I will hit up a couple of them. I'll pop in some Joe Rogan every once in a while. I'll listen to some Theo Von, Your Mom's House. I was actually really into theirs for a while, but a lot of it is just making fun of weird people and kind of made me feel bummed, you know? I listen to true crime channels on YouTube, but a lot of times it's just in my ear. Lutheran podcast. Okay. My favorite one was called The God Whisperers. Two dorky 50-ish-year-old dads. One of them was into cheeseball tiki culture, and I like that kind of stuff. And then they just cracked a lot of jokes, and it was really irreverent. But when they did talk, their theology was really strong. But they also made fun of themselves a lot. What about you?
As long as podcasts have been a thing that people know about, I've tried to get into it over and over again. I like to listen to books on tape in the car. That's how I do a lot of reading. I probably read on average like 25 books a year, and the vast majority is I really listen to them. I don't actually read them. I try to get into podcasts, and I very rarely have found any that I will listen to more than one episode or two.
Yeah.
It depends on my mood, maybe, on what I'm trying to get out of it. Alex Hormozi, he's written books about how to win at sales in the modern environment with the internet. And he's funny, and he's very easy to listen to. Voice, his style, everything about it. It kind of doesn't pull punches. If something's dumb and everybody does it dumbly, he says so. I like Jon Stewart. I don't always agree with him or his guests on politics 100%.
He's charming.
And he's funny. That's one. I listen to hip hop podcasts. I can't even get through an episode because it's so much laughter, loud feedback, talking over each other.
Drink Champs, right?
Drink Champs is probably the one that I've tried to listen to the most and been least impressed by.
So when it gets to the nitty gritty, it's really good, but so much of it just slap ass, basically.
Yeah, I feel like if it was the radio 20 years ago when we used to listen to Sway and Tech or whatever, if they would have talked over each other as much and laughed so much in their show, no one would have listened to it.
Yeah, no, it's true.
So I can't really get into that. Haven't really dug too deep. I will from time to time listen to true crime podcasts because to me, that's like reading fiction. I know it's true crime, so it's not fiction, but I don't do it for any other reason. It's a time pass type of thing.
I do it because I am fascinated by that.
Like the Zodiac Killer or Charles Manson. I've read books on those figures, right? And so figures is a weird word to call them. On those murderers.
On scumbags.
These terrible, terrible people.
Here's the effed up thing. I was a very voracious reader as a kid. Beverly Cleary and like that kind of stuff. And I think one of the first adult length full-size books I ever read was a book my mom had in the bathroom about Jeffrey Dahmer. I was just fascinated by that. Like, I was like, yo, why do people do this? It baffled me. You know what I mean? As far as podcasts, there's another hip-hop podcast where it's narrative as opposed to just talking shit. They have a story and it'll be like interviewing Buckshot from Boot Camp Click or something. And it'll be like the history of Boot Camp Click. And they'll be asking questions and having them tell stories and stuff like that. And I think that's fascinating.
For me, like being able to listen to something, it's when I'm driving. Right. I think is the case for most adults. Yeah. So you have your kids in the car some part of the time that you're driving. So it's either like listen to music, and that ranges from new stuff all the way to things that we listened to when we were kids. You probably more than I have researched to know what podcasts look like and sound like, and I have very little to go on. If this is not how people do it, I don't care.
Most people don't film outdoors. Most people are using slightly better mics than this. Whatever, dude. We've been putting it on for so long, and I wanted it to be comfortable for us. There's a lot of podcasts that, like their first episode, they already have this massive podcast studio and stuff. I'm like, who the fuck are you?
You know what? You see it in real estate videos too. They spend like $5,000 to make one video. It's worse than the videos that we make from a cost perspective. Isn't even a tenth of that. Just go out and do it. The key to all this shit that people don't do is like, just go out and do it. Who cares?
Yeah. And that's on us too, right? We have so much music we never put out or should be working on or whatever. In a lot of cases, people who have really perfected that is young kids and the people who paid attention to the young kids. We're talking about music. The whole freaking SoundCloud era of kids was literally just kids who were like, I don't give a fuck, just put it out.
When we did music, it was the complete opposite of that. It was like, we can't put this out until we pay a professional master. Or for what? For 36 people to listen to album ever. We spent $1,000 to have this guy master. We drove all the way to Oakland. What a waste of time.
Well, yeah, meanwhile, at the same time we were doing that, Little Doo-Doo Stain was getting like 1,000 listens.
We should have just embraced the internet like Gary Vee style back in 2002.
Yeah. We've always been really good at doing a lot with a little bit of what we had. Our studio, while it was a separate space and we had built our mic booth and stuff, it was a damn near falling apart office building in a rundown airport in the middle of San Jose. Blankets on the wall.
We definitely did go for it in certain aspects and not others, right?
Yeah.
Or like we try to overcompensate maybe.
I think maybe that was it. Yeah.
When we first started making music, the equipment was literally trash that we put together.
If you're talking about high school, I don't even know where I got this sampling drum machine from. I can't remember what friend let me borrow it. And then I had Casio SK1 and it literally can just sample like 1 second of a note. A Tascam 4-track tape recorder, but it only had 3 tracks. I think some of it we recorded through headphones because we didn't have a mic.
The first time I recorded with you was the headphone. And then when we actually got like our own separate studio space and we were going to take it seriously, we had an Akai 12 track. It was worth like $800 or something like that. It was used, I'm pretty sure.
The first one was 12 and then we went up to 16.
It wasn't very long before we got Pro Tools and all that, but we went for it. We made music. I'm proud of that, to be honest. Some of it we still have, some of it we don't. We actually created something, put a lot of effort into that. It's like 7 o'clock in the evening till about 2 o'clock in the morning, 7 days a week.
We had a lot of the just do it, the DIY effort in some areas, and then in the other area, which was arguably the most important, the marketing is where we drop the ball.
If you want to do something and you want to have success with it, you got to look at the whole scope of it. Where is it really important to spend the effort and the money?
Yeah.
It was backwards to think that paying $1,000 to a masterer when we could mix and master it kind of ourselves.
Yeah, we could have, dude.
And like save the money on the mastering and put that money into making sure people heard it.
Yeah.
Like how dumb was that? Just make the music and put it out. People like it, cool. If they don't like it, you end up in the same spot either way. That's hindsight. Some people have hindsight. Some people have forethought.
This market is wild or what? It's different. It's
the real estate market right now. First of all, if I was talking to a real estate agent right now complaining about the market, and believe me, that's what most of your average real estate agents are doing right now. Is if you have a tough listing that's on the market right now, that you're having a hard time selling, congratulations, because if you're doing it right, you're studying every day, like why is it not selling? And you're calling all the comparable pending sales and you're calling all of the cancel and withdrawn and saying, like, what happened? Did you get offers and they were good enough? Why did you cancel? And then you're looking at the actives and seeing, are they lowering their price? Are they on the market 60 days? What's happening with that? If you're studying that, you're reporting that back to your client, you're learning so much. It's such an opportunity to learn. And this market, in every market, but in Silicon Valley, my expertise is it's cyclical. Whatever I'm learning today, I'm going to use it again. It may not be next year. It may not be the year after that, but 5, 6, maybe 10 years from now, I'm going to use it. A market like this is where agents get better. When I say a market like this, it's like if you're at a middle school dance.
Okay.
Right? And you have boys on one side of the room and girls on the other side of the room. And the DJ's playing slow song. The market is the DJ playing slow song.
Okay, I get you.
The boys don't want to cross over, and the girls don't want to cross over. So there's no meeting of the minds at the moment. Sellers want what they could have gotten 60 to 75 days ago. Buyers want to pay 10% less than that.
Okay.
That's a gross generalization. There's micro markets in San Jose where it's a lot smaller of a gap. And then there's micro markets in San Jose or other parts of Santa Clara County where it's bigger than that. And when I say what I've seen, I'm talking about I'm getting on the phone and I'm calling homes that are pending. These are the ones that actually contracted to sell yesterday, the day before, a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Not the ones that contracted to sell 45 days ago and closed 15 days
Which
ago.
the information most people get when they look at a CMA is actually almost ancient.
The market moves this quickly, it's ancient. When the market's not moving this quickly and it's kind of more normal, 60 days, 90 days ago is similar to today.
No.
But right now it's not. Calling those pendings, getting that information, calling on the canceleds and seeing like, okay, this person was on the market at 1.7 and they took it off. I call them up and ask their agent, why did they take it off? They say, well, they got offers of 1.7,
Yeah.
but they wanted 1.8.
Right.
And it's like, okay, so that means that the market thought it was worth 1.7 at that time. So you put all these little data points together and you can kind of see, and what I'm seeing is a range of 4 to 12%, depending on where. There's a silver lining, at least in Blossom Valley, which is 95136, 95123. Let's say the first quarter, there was 10, 15, 20 houses for sale on active.
Okay.
And then there was maybe 20, 25 that were pending.
Right.
So the number of homes already in contract to sell were higher than the number of active homes. Okay. So they're selling quicker than they're coming up. It flipped. In 95136, for example, it was as much as 40 houses for sale at one time. And it went from like 12 to 40. And then there was like 11 or 10 or 15 or somewhere in that range pending. That number's gotten a lot closer to each other. As of today, June 6th, it's like 19 pending and 23 active. So that number has shrunk on the actives a lot. And it's partly because houses are selling.
Yeah.
So the homes are selling because some sellers have to sell. And yes, they want 1.8 for their house, but since it's only worth 165, they're contracted.
You have to do what you have to do, right?
They have to do it. So those houses are selling and they're getting about 10% less. Those sellers that are realistic are contracting, and then the ones that are unrealistic are starting to fall off. When that happens, you start seeing big chunks of that inventory go down. Now, the positive thing is that if that continues, then sellers are going to start seeing houses sell more quickly, and they're going to start seeing buyers start to compete again for houses because they're not going to be able to just sit back and say, well, I can just go buy something else. The inventory is going to shrink. Buyers are still out there. That's going to increase urgency, if not prices. The thing that I think people are hoping for and expecting almost is that that's going to happen. That might be recency bias.
Right.
Because over the last 13 years, there have been slowdowns in the market, but they only lasted a short period of time before it started to go back the other direction.
Right.
A prolonged slowdown or a prolonged decrease in value hasn't happened in the recent past, but it has happened. That recency bias is making everyone feel that way. I think they might be right, but it's also very possible that this is more than just a summer slump.
It could be an extended period where this is what we're dealing with. Like you said, recency bias, it's kind of the same thing of like, well, we haven't had an earthquake in 6 years, so we're not going to have one this year.
I mean, literally, I think in California right now, or in the Bay Area anyway, that is how we feel.
Right.
It's been a long time since there's been an earthquake, so we don't think about it much.
Yeah. And then it happens, you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this little...
So if you're out there right now, you better get your earthquake pack together.
Yeah.
Your batteries, flashlights, and whatnot.
Yeah.
I think we might be suffering from recency bias. I think agents are out there giving advice that might be tainted with recency bias.
Right.
For 13 years, when it slowed down for 3 months, maybe 6 months at the most, and then it popped back up. They're expecting that too.
Yeah.
They're going to tell their sellers, if you don't have to sell, don't. That might be the advice they're giving. But the thing about that is, in many cases, it's not just recency. It's also short-term in the business. If you've been in the business between 0 and 13 years, never seen a prolonged slowdown. But I will tell you that other things can happen. One hope that I have that this is not going to be a prolonged slowdown is that it was to some extent created by a shock to the market. The decline of tech stocks so quickly, which have recovered, but inventory shot up so much during that period that the market and real estate hasn't recovered.
Well, and like you said a million times, the money was coming from those tech stocks.
That's right.
The piggy banks were a little lower. It wasn't like these people were poor all of a sudden.
Definitely not.
They had a shit ton of money still.
They're just more cautious because their million became 800. I mean, they're still rich as hell, but they don't think so though, because by the standards of living here, it's so normalized, and also normal people get scared when they got like $200 left in the bank.
Right.
People that have this kind of money, they actually get scared when they have 800,000
as opposed to 1.2 or something.
Yeah, exactly. Long story short, I think the market is starting to show signs of not as bad as it was, but still not as good as it was. So more of an evening out. The next 30 days will be crucial. If we see a bunch of houses come on the market because people are doing their regular summer listing and buyers stay apathetic, then this is going to be at least this year. But if sellers are like, I'm not selling at a price I don't really want, I think inventory might come back down some, and that we will see a different animal. So I didn't talk anything about interest rates, but they remain higher than what people want them to be. I think that maybe we've been told rates are going down and then didn't go down enough times now where people are like, fuck it, stop waiting, because they're not going to come down.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe they are going to come down, but if they do, it's not going to be, we're not going to go back to the glory days of 3%. Maybe they come down to like on a 30-year fix, it's 6.25 instead of 6.75, but going down to 5% or 4%. It's just, I think people have kind of started to give up on that hope, at least in the short term. And so maybe make them act more cautiously, but also more urgently, but it's hard to say.
The inflation thing where it's like, no matter who you voted for, who your guy wasn't going to fix. The inflation is the inflation. It got up to this point. It's not going to go back down here. It'll just go back down.
Let's talk about that for a second, because it bothers me a little bit that the election talk prior to the election was so focused on inflation. And the reason that it bothers me is because of a few things. I've been an adult in the real estate business for 23 years. And I was taught in high school and in college that when interest rates are low, people borrow more money. And when people borrow more money, they spend more money. When they spend more money, inflation happens.
Right.
I saw interest rates be low for my entire adult life until 2.5, 3 years ago. And inflation was pretty moderate, except for certain items went up a lot. Like cars and houses, went up a lot. But generally speaking, inflation was more than manageable.
For decades, your white T-shirt costs $250. Forever, right?
Yeah.
Like,
we can't remember a time that it didn't.
Right.
For context sake, from 2001 till 2022, pretty much nobody mentioned inflation as a problem. 0 times did I ever hear anybody say that. And we had a 2-term Republican, a 2-term Democrat, a Republican, and then a Democrat in that span.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, inflation is the most talked about thing, and it was real. Go to the grocery store and you're like, how does bacon cost $11 a pound for not even the good bacon, right? I was a Farmer John guy, but like I can't afford it now. I go to Walmart and get my bacon.
I'm a great value bar.
Yeah, man. Things have changed. Inflation became this thing because it was really real to Americans. It was really real to you. It was really real to me. It was really real to the people that have $1 million in their stock account with NVIDIA. And it became the only thing that they talked about. But nobody talked about how do you actually curb inflation, which the answer was supposed to be and is probably to keep rates higher so that people borrow less money, make borrowing less attractive, make spending less attractive. And it's not going to happen through necessarily the political policies. Another way to make things inflate more is to just give money to people. Like the government printing more money causes that too.
Like we did for 4 years.
Yeah. But whoever was going to be elected in the last election cycle was not going to make a massive impact on inflation.
And based on what you started the conversation with, which is this is what we were taught, that it was almost an inevitability that inflation was going to break. It was a dam that was waiting to break. Yeah. It broke. You know what I mean?
That's what it feels like. And I'm no economist. My level of education on econ is high school. And then I did 2 econ classes in general education at West Valley College. So I am not an expert on the field. But what I do know is what I was taught.
Yeah.
And what I saw from my adult life was interest rates did not impact inflation until either the dam broke or the combination of way too long with super low rates and a lot of money being infused into the economy due to the constraints of our moving about during COVID.
So things had to happen. People needed to buy food and stuff.
Giving away free money is what some people would call it, or social programs that helped during the COVID, along with 20 previous years of low rates. The dam broke and inflation was a scary thing.
Yeah.
Right. And it seems to me now that it has not really curbed that much, but the rate of inflation has curbed.
I think you're
never going to see that. I don't believe. I mean, again, not an economist, but you're never going to see the prices go down again. Like bacon is $10 a pound.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. That was kind of my point. Just like the interest rates, either you would look. I can see why it would suck to people and people get upset when you say things like this, but adapt or die.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
People hate that, but it's beyond facts.
It's adapt or die. Guess what? You're going to have to eat less bacon. You're going to have to go to the cheaper gas. You're going to have to do whatever you can to get that 25 cents off.
It doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have. Like when the belt gets tightened by the economy or whatever the case is, you start making different choices.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, we have a freezer full of meat. We packed it full of meat for a reason. Oh, I want this, so I'm going to go to Safeway and pick this up on the way home. A lot of people have stores of stuff that they've bought, food and you know, packages of pasta and ground beef, and you're just like, I don't want pasta and ground beef.
Yeah. So this is a plug for Safeway, which I think Safeway is wildly too expensive. It drives me nuts how all grocery stores do this, but basically everything's always on sale in one way or another, and it's all these different sales, but it's all bullshit. So I think it's probably because it's like there's a shipment coming or whatever, but the sales are better on Friday nights.
Yeah.
Another plug for Safeway is that they sell all of their hot food on Friday nights at a discount. Bomb-ass ribs.
Yes, they do have really good ribs. I actually like the Safeway deli sandwiches, and sometimes they do those. And actually, the Safeway fried chicken is solid, dude.
It is so good. Maybe we do one of our influencer videos at Safeway.
On Safeway, yeah, like check out the deli, dude.
Why are you not at Safeway Deli on a Friday night? It's standing in line trying to get some ribs with your friends.
Bro, I've been where the line for like the fried chicken is like around the corner, bro.
Bro, it was we went to Monterey for my sister's graduation. Shout out to Nikki.
Yeah.
We were an hour and a half early with the baby, so we went to Safeway to get a deli sandwich or whatever we could. It was crazy how many people were there, and I'm like, and I didn't know about the ribs. I'm like, what are all these people doing here? And they're like, oh, we're here for the ribs.
One time Claudia was like, hey, they have the $5 Friday. She's like, go get us some fried chicken. It sounds delicious. I'm like, yeah, fried chicken sounds great. And I went, and literally everyone in front of me would be like, 3 pounds of chicken. And then they would literally stop and be like, okay, everybody, you got to wait 20 minutes for the next round.
Somebody just cuts in front of you, and they're doing an awards banquet for their football team. So obviously, I think we should tell the viewers after we've talked about the bacon and the fried chicken that this is a vegan podcast.
Yeah, 100%.
So clearly,
100%. We're talking about vegan ribs with vegan bacon.
My little brother's a vegan. Every time I talk publicly about eating meat, I feel like is my brother going to see this? Is my brother going to judge me because I eat bacon? Like on a group chat with my family, I don't want to text like a picture of this, pozole that I just, I'm like, Rory's going to see that and he's going to be like, you're not supposed to eat that.
The male urge to photograph your meat.
Hey, but don't do it though.
I attempted my first tri-tip, like get the sear on it, right?
Yeah.
And then you let it cook for like 30 minutes. But I did it on my Blackstone. It came out super good. The only issue was I got a pre-marinated ones, a rookie mistake.
Pre-marinated is a rookie mistake.
I had to scrape away a lot of the bark because it had so much sugar. It caramelized, But once we got down there, the meat was perfect. Tri-tip is actually one of my favorite beefs. I love tri-tip. I think it's just a solid, tender, nice cut, and it's easy to cook. So I was like, I'm going to perfect it. It's kind of going to be my thing. I'm going to try to make tri-tip my thing because I'm not big into like low and slow. I'm not going to be in my backyard hitting a brisket for 17 hours.
If I could set it and forget it and smoke something, first of all, I don't like smoked meat.
Why would you say something so controversial? It's so true.
Dude, everybody's like, I love smoked meat. I don't love eating things that taste like smoke.
Yeah.
It's weird to me. Like, I don't eat fire. A little smoke flavor on something is great.
And
I wish people would comment because that would make our podcast actually more engagement. So if you think what I'm saying is stupid, great comment. I hope they do.
Yeah.
But to be honest, they're not because no one's watching this. But I think smoked meat sucks. And I think you do too.
I don't think it sucks. Because if I go to a really good place, back in the day, for a while I was super into smoking pig. I do like a really good barbecue, but I think barbecue is one of those things that you have to be crazy dedicated to get good at. And I think most people aren't that dedicated. But I also think, like, and we've said this before, I think it's really just an excuse for dudes
to sit in the backyard, smoke cigars, drink beer, and hang out with their friends. It's the same thing with the garage and cars.
Murray.
No, actually, we really do like that. My wife will be the first to admit that I'm not the greatest barbecuer.
Yeah.
Like, I do okay. Cooking on the stove, I can do a lot better.
It really struck me as like a stew guy. You like stews
It makes stews, in my opinion. Chile verde, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Cook it really low and slow. But barbecuing, I could get the job done. No one's going to go home sick. No one's going to go home and be like, he's terrible. But no one's going to go home and be like, he should start a restaurant. But I don't really like barbecued meat that much. It's not my thing. Like,
So I do like it.
I think that's not very manly to say. I like to be in the kitchen better.
Yeah,
I
well.
really like barbecuing, but I like being out in the sun. My backyard's awesome, right?
Yeah.
I like the pool and people playing in the pool, and I like the atmosphere of it, but eating the food is not my favorite thing.
Basic burgers and hot dogs isn't really your thing, right?
I like grilling burgers. I like grilling hot links and hot dogs. This is not rocket science. If your kid plays baseball, they put you in the snack shack and make you grill burgers, and they don't ask you for a license. Everybody's expected to know how to do this. I could do a tri-tip. I could do a pre-marinated or a regular tri-tip. It's nothing special, but I could do it. I love doing arrachera.
Yeah, I was
not
gonna say.
carne asada, but arrachera.
Yeah.
I like doing that. I buy it pre-marinated from the Mexican store. Although I can marinate it or season it, it'll be fine. I cannot do, for the life of me, steak. Like, tri-tip, yeah. If I was to get some really good cuts of steak, like a prime rib, a filet mignon, like I can't even do it on the stove. For whatever reason, I suck at it.
Yeah.
And I've tried to do it probably 10 times, and I'm just not good. I'm also, sorry to keep interrupting.
No. I'm fascinated.
I think that I am comparing my ability to cook it to dope ass steakhouses. If you've been to Alexander's or even Ruth's Chris, or you've been to like
Even Morton's.
I can't recreate that. No matter how easy Gordon Ramsay makes it look on TV, it's not.
In our house, I'll do the tri-tip out there, and I'll gladly, like you said, arrachera or even some carne asada. And I like that. I really like the whole pollo asado, marinated chicken, and grill the shit out of it or griddle the shit out of it. I like that.
You just like to hold the two spatulas.
Yeah, I do. I really do. I
You're
enjoy that.
like a G when you're
I like that stuff, dude. I really do. And I like being out there with my little boombox speaker.
your kid watching you and seeing you do manly stuff.
Yeah, it's dope. I love
Yeah.
it. I've designated Claudia the steak queen because her steaks are solid.
A call to action for our viewer. Go check it
In
out.
person.
Send us an email, a DM, some kind of instruction on how to cook steak on the barbecue.
Yeah.
I can honestly I can't.
Because you have a Blackstone and you...
Currently I have a Blackstone and a Weber. I had a charcoal chimney barbecue that was amazing because it barbecued, but also gave it a tiny bit of that smoke
See,
flavor.
that's what I like. I like a tiny bit of
That
shit.
master built at Home Depot, and it was only like $500 on sale, and I loved it. And then when I let a professional chef use it, they caught it on fire.
They burn the internals,
They
right?
burned everything, melted the shit out of it. So anyway, I have a Weber and a first generation Blackstone. This is how you know it's first generation. It has a gutter for the grease in the front instead of the drain in the back.
Yeah.
Get yourself one that has a drain in the back. I promise you the gutter thing is a mess.
before I got the actual Blackstone, I got a flat plate that I would put on top of the gas grill, and it had that gutter. And I was like, this sucks. Why does anyone do this? It's terrible. I was like, this is the worst.
I really want to give it to somebody so that they can be miserable with it.
Why does anyone cook with a flat top? And now that I have the Blackstone that has the hole in the back, I freaking love it, dude. Anytime Claudia's like, hey, want to cook? I'm like, can we, like, I try to figure out a way to cook it on the Blackstone.
Why are you trying to cook soup on the Blackstone? This is something that we don't really talk about publicly as much. We're trying to build our Instagram to be useful for people that one, I want them to know me as a real estate agent, but also I'm an active person in the community in many different ways. I'm trying to highlight that. Currently, I've been on a hiatus.
We are passionate about certain things, and weirdly enough, we actually really like where we live. We think it's a dope place to live.
Honestly, people talk so much shit about living here. They hate it.
Look at this backyard, bro.
This is a regular house in San Jose.
Nice backyard.
Yeah.
Yesterday, me and my family drove to Monterey. It took us an hour. The drive up was gorgeous, and the drive back, I'm like, dude, look at where we live.
My vegan brother lives in Washington, and I don't think the weather's as great there as it is here. We're sitting in the shade. There's a nice breeze. It's not too hot. I haven't even thought about the temperature yet. My other brother lives in Kansas, and 4 days ago, they were hunkered down in the basement because a tornado was touching down near their house.
Oh, shit. Okay, so check this out. I'm sure you've seen this a million times where I follow a lot of fitness accounts.
As you can see, my buff arms
and giant guns and my rippling abs. I love lifting. I actually, like, I get super into it every year, and then, whatever. When we're working on all that kind of stuff. Obviously, I respect people that are consistent. You either see the douchebag saying it or people reacting to it, where it'll be some guy posting a video like, this is what 6 years of working out consistently looks like, and he's jacked, right? The person posting it is jacked, but he doesn't look like a sculpted, airbrushed fitness model or a monstrous bodybuilder, right? Mm-hmm. And the comments or the douchebag who's posting it will be like, why would you post this? This is such a mid physique. You know what I'm saying? The other side of it will be people reacting to it, like somebody commenting, being like, this is what consistency actually looks like. Like, this dude, first off, is fitter than 99.9% of humans on the earth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just because he has a little belly fat, because maybe he enjoys his tacos, you know what I'm saying? Doesn't mean he's not ripped, and he's not in the perfect lighting. He's not flexing. And I think that is a message that has been lost with social media. We have confused what consistency looks like with what either the liars or the freaks look like.
Yeah. I think it crosses a lot of things over besides physical fitness, but like specifically, I think this is false narrative. If you work out consistently, eat perfectly, that you're going to look a certain way. The truth is, it's impossible for most people to be that. But yet, over and over again, that's what we see as the poster for physical fitness. Honestly, physical fitness is all you're really trying to do is, look, we're all going to die at some point. It's not a race we can win. All we're doing is running as fast as we can to stay as far ahead of it as we can for as long as we can. We're not trying to win the race. We're trying to extend the race.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so if that's what you're doing, you're physically fit. I think social media has fucked that up for our psyches as human beings.
If you're working out consistently, if you're in a normal situation like a beach, let's say you're a dude, you're in a normal situation like a beach, and you take off your shirt, 90% of the normal women on that beach, the moms and the college girls, will look at you and be like, oh shit, that guy's hot. You know what I mean? That's you won. Now, do you look like freaking Zac Efron in Baywatch? No, because he was like juiced to the gills, and he admits he was juiced to the gills. If you can carry both of your kids in each arm for 20 minutes, 30 minutes walking around Walmart, you're jacked. You're doing good. If you go to the doctor and your numbers come back and the doctor's like, cholesterol's great, blood pressure's great.
This is how guys are feeling.
Yeah.
Imagine how women feel. The amount of social media that's flooded with the perfect physique of women far exceeds men. And I think generally speaking, they probably have more of a sensitivity towards that than we do. It's bad for us. It's worse for them.
Yeah.
It's not just physical fitness. It's everything. Everybody is looking at the influencers and the wannabe influencers and the fake account, and seeing this idea of perfection that just doesn't exist in real life. It bothers me in fitness to some extent, but not as much as it does in real estate. The amount of phoniness in this business is beyond comprehension for the average person. People say, I am the #1 agent in an area, and then you can literally look up their sales and see that they're not even in the conversation of who should be in the conversation. Nowhere near it. And then you look up further and they might sign 50 listings in a year, which is heavy hitting.
Yeah.
25 of them cancel. So like, not the number one agent by volume, which doesn't make you good.
Yeah.
But also, they're not even good. They're neither.
If you sell 10 houses and you sell all of them for 5-10% over, you're a good agent.
That's typically the metric. If you get the market or better for it, you can't sell them all because there's other factors involved. But if you're at 90 to 98% of all your listings signed, you actually close.
Yeah.
You can't please everybody, but if a high percentage of them walk away thinking that it was easy, then you're a good agent.
I would recommend them.
It doesn't matter if you do 10 or 100, but the standard of what is good is so inflated. I mean, 71% of agents in the United States last year closed zero. And then the 29% that closed more than zero, the vast majority of those was like 1 to 5. Yep. And everybody thinks realtors are making all this money and driving around in Mercedes and BMW and Tesla and this and that. And it's like, it's such a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
Everybody's top 1%. It's lame.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, not everybody's top 1%. Probably the agent that you hired is not top 1% like they say they are, or 10%. They're just a guy with a license.
Consistency then, taking it back to that. What would consistency actually look like? What's the marker for the results if you're being consistent? What do you consider the okay, you see this, this, and this, that means you're putting in the work and it's getting results.
I think so much of that is behind the scenes, right? Yeah. The agent that's actually out looking for people to serve every day, whether it's on the phones or in the streets or through the mail.
Yeah.
That's like box check number 1. Then box check number 2, in the Bible, it says you can tell a tree by its fruit, right? A bad tree cannot bear fruit, and a good tree can't bear bad fruit. So if you look at their listings and they look professionally done, whether it's the pictures, the video, the staging, the attention to detail of every aspect of the transaction, that's a marker.
Okay.
For sure. And then of course, the number of sales, because if you're closing a deal here and a deal there, if you're closing 1 or 2 sales here and there, how is it that you know the market? Because I know my knowledge of the market is vastly improved by my work in it every day, because it forces me to do that. Right. It forces me to pay attention, to know what's going on. So I don't personally believe that you can close a deal here and a deal there and truly know what's going on. And so I think there's a problem with that, right? If an agent does a deal here and a deal there, and then somebody comes to them in April of this year and says, should I remodel my kitchen and bathrooms before I put it on the market so I could get top dollar? And the general answer is usually yes. So they say yes.
Yeah.
But then they wait 60 days and the market's now dropped 10% since then. And that's real. That's like what's happened right now.
Yeah.
I actually gave to a seller, I said, don't do that.
Yeah.
I said, I would normally say do that, but in this market right now, what we need to do is get it to look as best as we can in the fastest amount of time, clean it up, and we need to get it on the market. And they went with somebody else and sold their house probably for $200,000 less than what I would have got them in a lesser condition 2 months ago.
If you had thrown it on the market within that week.
Currently pending for the second time because it fell out of escrow once. Yeah. And they probably spent $40,000 to $60,000 to lose money. So they spent money on the market tanking on them. Right. Not tanking, but you know what I mean. And so my point is that agent that told them that did not read the market well enough to advise them properly, and they lost money as a result. To me, that's also a marker of an agent, is their current experience in the market right now. And then of course, when the market does shift dramatically and it's reminiscent of a previous market, having an agent that's been in it a long time can say, oh, I remember this happening before. There's going to come a time, perhaps soon, where we might actually see short sales again, okay? Especially in the condo market. Okay. Because condos have not appreciated in 5 or 6 years, and in some markets, they've actually come down. And if people put 10 or 20% down on a property, and then they got an adjustable rate mortgage, that's gonna go from 2.5% to, over time, it'll go to 6 or 7%, and their house is now worth less than they owe on it, they're not going to be able to keep it. Right. And they won't be able to sell it and pay off the mortgage, which is going to create a need for a short sale. There's going to be short sales probably. And if there are short sales, there's going to be people like myself who actually remember how to do them. Yeah, it has to be your thing, man. There's going to be a lot of people that have never even heard of them. Yeah. And so longevity, experience, current experience in the market today, all those things matter. So those are markers.
What could you tell an agent, an agent who's 3 years in, who's been consistent, but because they're looking at social media bullshit, they don't feel like they're successful? But what can you tell them to be like, you are successful, look at these things?
That's a good question. I would say look at your database. Did it start with 0 and now you have 100 names? Yeah. Look at the conversations you're having. How much closer are you to getting a sale than when you first started talking to people? Yeah. Do you convey information to your client? Okay. There's a saying, it took me 20 years to look like an overnight success. I literally lived that. I almost forgot in my own head the 15 years of doing open houses every weekend and putting out signs with other people's names on them because they weren't my listings. And I forgot about all that because it felt like an overnight success once it worked.
Yeah.
One of the things I noticed for myself was that my ability and confidence when I talk to people changed. When somebody asked me a question and I stumbled through the answer when I first started, and 3 years in now, yeah, I only have 9 sales under my belt, but when somebody asked me that same question, I got an answer for them, and it sounds like I've been doing this my whole life. Forget about only having 3 sales a year. Think about the fact that now you are a professional. Now you know what you're talking about.
Right.
And then the other thing too is that really look deeply into what it is that you're doing, and are you really doing it? Because we know our own heart, we know our own work ethic,
of course.
And we know that the vast majority of people in any business for themselves end up sometimes treating their own business the same way that employee that sits in the back room and smokes pot all day and doesn't do his job, and when the boss shows up is like pretending to do his job.
Yeah.
We all know that a lot of entrepreneurs treat their own business like that when there's nothing immediately necessary.
Or making you money.
They act like they're brain surgeons and they're on an emergency call when somebody says they want to see a $3 million house.
Right.
If you're that guy, look at your time and how you're spending it, and don't be that guy. What's your fun question?
All right. You and I love hip hop. We're going to keep talking about it. We're going to make it whatever. You and I both have a deep respect, admiration, and consider him damn near a GOAT when it comes to Jake One, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Jake One, producer from the Pacific Northwest, white boy, has made hits for 50, for De La Soul, for, you know what I mean? Like, did fucking Three Kings with Jay-Z, Rick Ross, and, you know, he's a monster, man.
He's a monster, yeah.
So then I saw a podcast with him, and he's a West Coast dude, and even though his sound has a lot of East Coast, there's definitely a lot of West Coast in his sound. There's a lot of funk, there's a lot of swing, you know? He made the point in the podcast, and it was eruptive in the comments, that the West Coast actually won the 90s as opposed to the East Coast West Coast war. I see his point, and in a lot of ways, I'm like, well, yeah, if you're talking financially, cultural cachet, probably in a lot of ways. We were talking about it a little bit, but I wanted to get your...
That's a hard question to answer. Personally, during the 90s, I flip-flopped from West Coast to actually being more of an East Coast fan while living on the West Coast.
It was Wu-Tang, right?
It was Wu-Tang, yeah.
Oh.
Because of Wu-Tang, it opened up the East Coast to me in a way that I hadn't seen before. The West Coast drew me in a lot of ways because of MC Hammer and Too Short, and then later on, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and all that.
Chronic album.
To say who had the most influence on culture, I would actually say West Coast won that in the 90s.
Yeah.
I think in the 2000s, it switched back.
Yeah, it switched back.
And it also included more because the South became really popular.
I would say if anyone won overall, it was actually the South just won
hip-hop.
The South just took the whole...
But I will say this. There's going to be people that say Jake one's from the West Coast, so of course he would say that. And I'm going to say something that might be controversial, but the Pacific Northwest is the West Coast. When it comes to hip hop, it's not. It's its own thing.
Yeah.
It's almost a stepchild of hip hop that deserved to be there all along.
I would say very similar to the Midwest. Let's put it like...
Yeah, the Midwest always belonged to the conversation, but was never in it, right? And it's the same thing with the Pacific Northwest. That's where he comes from, and they're definitely influenced by both sides.
Yeah.
Culturally, Seattle and Portland, I think, are more East Coasty. When people think the West Coast, this is what trips me out, is they really are talking about LA.
Yeah, they're really...
Ain't nobody talking about the Bay.
No.
And the Bay is completely different from all of them. The Bay is more closely related to the South than it is to LA. And the Northwest is more related to the Midwest or even the East Coast than it is to LA. So
I would say the Northwest, in the same way that the Midwest is, the Northwest took the sample chopping, very much thinking heavily about lyrics.
Yeah.
LA rappers can rap. They can put words together. They can be clever as fuck. In LA, it's a lot more about the way you're saying things than what you're saying. In the East Coast, there was a lot more of, what does this mean? What's the clever thing here? What's the internal rhyme here? The Pacific Northwest and the Midwest took that, but then they brought in the funk and the swing.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. The West Coast did not win the 90s.
Yeah.
But I think culturally, in America, in the world, globally, the influence that West Coast hip hop has had on 90s West Coast hip hop has had on our world culture is bigger.
Yeah.
If you ask a random non-hip hop listener who Dr. Dre is or who Snoop Dogg is, they know.
Immediately.
If you ask them who Nas is or you ask them who Jay-Z is, as famous as Jay-Z is,
I mean, if you're talking about, you know, flag bearers of the East Coast, like the dudes who put a flag down and you're like, that's the East Coast sound. If you're talking about like Mobb Deep, most people won't know who Mobb Deep is. Chunk of people won't know. Even nowadays, a lot of kids don't know who Wu is, but they'll still know who Dr. Dre and Snoop is.
probably don't even know who Outkast is,
Right.
which is wild to prove a point. Like Outkast is as far as hip hop culture is concerned, they're phenomenally important. And I don't think the young kids know who they are. And I think that they would recognize Andre from a movie more than they would recognize him from ATLians.
Yeah, dude, without Outkast, and then and then some of the more underground, weirdos like Kool Keith, we wouldn't have the weirdo rappers you guys are into now. Just being a weird dude in rap is so much more common now, where you're perfectly allowed, even on the mainstream, to be a fucking weirdo. Without Outkast, it wouldn't have happened. And then on an underground sense, simmering influence of weirdos like Kool Keith. But without specifically Andre wearing freaking fluffy boots.
Going back to the question, I think overall 90s hip hop was more for everybody from LA, more for the heads from New York.
Yeah.
And I think that conversation leaves out the Bay Area, especially E40 and Too Short, were way too influential on everything to not be in that conversation.
Shit. And that's not Souls too, dude. If you talked to a Drake, well, Wayne, and they would have said, oh, I fucking loved Souls.
We've met the Souls of Mischief. We've met pretty much all of the high road people. And as Joey actually kind of like lightweight knows them.
Yeah.
The reason this blows me away is Eminem got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. His acceptance, he listed all the people that influenced him. He put Souls of Mischief on his list of influences. As far as famous rappers, this is the pinnacle.
That's the dude who everyone knows.
He said that the Souls of Mischief influenced him.
Yeah.
In that sense, if we are talking West Coast and you combine the two, I would say, yeah.
It's the most difficult stage of the mission. Mission.
Focus on the mission. Mission. Mission must continue.
I think we should focus on the progress resulting from